In this video, I want to talk about whether your Scrum Master should be technical. And I mean that in the sense of, should your Scrum Master come from a development background? Should they be someone who used to write lines and lines and lines of code and then moved up into Scrum Mastering, or moved across into Scrum Mastering rather? Or should you actually look for a Scrum Master who doesn't have a technical background, that really understands Agile, really understands Scrum, might understand a bit of code, but actually is much more on the softer skills side and on the Agile mindset side than on the coding and development side? It's a really, really interesting issue, one I haven't seen discussed too much, and one that kind of there's no right or wrong answer to. You can see both sides of the argument. But what I'd like to do today is kind of play devil's advocate a bit and say, actually, maybe your Scrum Master shouldn't be technical. So this kind of comes from looking at various job ads at the moment online, and people saying, we're looking for a Scrum Master who can write in the following languages, who understands this, that, continuous integration, blah, 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 loads and loads of technical requirements, kind of a job ad for a developer, but with just some team facilitation stuff tacked on the side, or the word Scrum Master written at the top. Really kind of a development role. And I kind of think, in one hand, fair enough. If you're using Scrum in a software context, and you don't have to use Scrum in a software context, Scrum could be used in any context, but obviously typically is mostly used in software. But if you're using Scrum in a software context, it'd be a bit weird if your Scrum Master turned up and went, you know what, I have no idea what you guys are even doing or talking about or anything, not a clue. That'd be odd. But at the same time, that would be odd in any context. If you're using Scrum in any environment, any industry, you'd like someone to have a bit of an appreciation of what was going on. But I don't think they'd necessarily need a huge amount of detail and a huge amount of understanding for a few different reasons, really. So first of all, people talk about, if the team is blocked on something, then it's the Scrum Master's responsibility to unblock it, to get the team moving again. And that's great, but obviously unblocking it is a hugely amorphous, kind of imprecise thing for what could be many, many different courses of action. And if you're blocked on an issue around coding and development, and the Scrum Master is essentially a developer too, then the Scrum Master could quite easily unblock it by going, I'm just additional resource, we're going to apply to this problem, I'm going to get stuck into the coding, fix the problem for you, and you can move on. And that's fine. It's unblocked the problem, that's in a way fine. But actually, it hasn't really fixed the problem. There's that lovely analogy about, give a person a fish and they will feed themselves, teach them how to fish, and they will... give a person a fish to feed themselves for a day, teach them how to fish, and they'll feed themselves for a lifetime. And that's kind of the analogy that's appropriate in that sort of context, where if the Scrum Master comes in and says, I'm just additional resource, I've got some additional hours I can put into this, and I'll just fix that problem for you. It's fed them for a day, but it's not really teaching the person who's blocked, or even the wider team, how to fix that problem from then on. It's just, anytime something goes wrong, pull the Scrum Master in as additional resource, they fix it, they go away again. It's not really fundamentally fixing that problem. And I think if your Scrum Master wasn't technical and couldn't go in and fix that sort of stuff, they'd be much more inclined to start facilitating the team fixing it themselves, which be, I think, much more productive in the long run. It also, I think there's a risk around that as well, that if the Scrum Master just goes in and deals with the problem by actually just fixing the problem, they're getting very, very caught in the fine-grained detail. If there's one particularly tricky thing, they just fix that. And they're kind of missing the really useful thing I think Scrum Masters can do, where they take a step back and they kind of look at the bigger picture, look at, are there any systemic things going on here? Are there any structural problems? Is this problem going to keep on popping up in different ways? And if it does keep popping up, either the Scrum Master just goes in and fixes it each time, or if they don't fix it and they kind of take a step back from it, they might start noticing patterns in that problem and saying, actually, this isn't the root cause. These problems pop up in different areas, but the root cause is actually this thing over here. It might be the root cause is an entirely different part of the business. And if the Scrum Master just gets bogged down in the finer details and nitty-gritty and does the work themselves, they might not be able to take that step back that I think is really important and fix the root cause. And fixing the root cause is hugely more valuable than just fixing the problem and whacking the mole each time its head pops up, kind of thing. You're actually just turning the entire mole machine off, not to stretch the analogy too far. There's also kind of a coaching thing here. So within coaching generally, agile coaching, any sort of coaching, there's actually lots and lots of different ways you can do coaching, lots of different models for it. Coaching isn't just one single thing. And some coaching is very directive and very problem solving, and very much you need, say you're coaching in a software development environment, you need to have the knowledge to just tell the person what to do and direct them and support them in doing that. But some coaching is really on the other end. It's more about kind of counselling them, facilitating them, being a reflective observer, playing back to them what they're saying and helping them see better what the problems are by playing that back to them. And again, you don't need to be technical to do that. You need to be a good coach to do that. You need to be a good communicator to do that. You need the human abilities and so forth, which can be very, very different from the coding abilities. There's sort of almost two different skill sets sometimes. So yeah, if you have a technical Scrum Master, great, they may be able to teach people new techniques or tricks they've learned along the way, but they might not be able to do the coaching and facilitating that I think is actually much more important, especially from a servant leadership point of view. If servant leadership is about developing and helping people, and helping them grow, actually being a counsellor, a facilitator, a reflective observer, I think promotes growth and development a lot more than just going in and telling someone, well, if you have this problem, this is how you fix it. Job done, sort of thing. And this all comes down to a thing I've been looking for a phrase for, and I've kind of asked online about it, and no one has a phrase for it. But for some reason, the phrase "a 20-legged horse" is stuck in my head. That actually, quite often, when people are looking for Scrum Masters, they're actually kind of looking for a 20-legged horse. And there is, the only example I could find of this was also called, and I think my pronunciation is right, Sleipnir. Which was in Viking mythology, and it was an 8-legged horse. And obviously, if a horse runs fast with 4 legs, it will run even faster with 8 legs. And for some reason, my brain came up with 20 legs. Fastest horse ever, loads and loads of legs. But the point with that is that Sleipnir was mythological. It was a horse in Norse mythology. It didn't exist. And to my mind, I sincerely hope a 20-legged horse doesn't exist either. But quite often, when you're looking for a technical Scrum Master, I think you're looking for a 20-legged horse. You're looking for someone with so many different skills and abilities that actually they're a bit mythological, really. You're looking for someone who's got the technical experience, they can code, they understand the sysadmin side, they can do all the DevOps stuff. They're also a coach, they're also a collaboration builder, they're a great communicator, they're a servant leader, all of those things. There will be some people out there like that. You may be watching this now and you may be one of them, in which case, hurrah, congratulations, brilliant. Wish there were more people like that. But I don't think there are many people like that. And there's that phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, that if you get a good understanding of various different areas, you're not really going deep in any particular area. And Agile talks about needing T-shaped people with a breadth of experience and then sort of depth in certain areas. And actually, quite often what people seem to be looking for is a breadth of experience and depth in all of those things, kind of square-shaped people, I suppose you'd call them. And I don't think those people exist. And I think if you start looking for those sort of people, either you should admit what you're really looking for, you should actually say, we want a developer who can do a bit of Scrum Mastering too. And that's a perfectly valid role, to have a developer step up and be a Scrum Master. If your problems keep on happening around coding areas, and actually, yes, you're looking for another developer with a bit of Scrum Mastering. You're not really looking for a Scrum Master with a bit of development sort of thing. You need to understand which way around it is. You need to understand that, a 20-legged horse doesn't exist, a Sleipnir didn't exist, an 8-legged horse doesn't exist, and probably almost, inevitably, the people you're looking for who can do brilliant coding and DevOps and sysadmin and coaching and facilitating and servant leading, collaboration building and integrating with the rest of the business and all that sort of stuff, those people are quite rare. And if they do exist, they won't really necessarily have much depth in some of the areas that you might need. So kind of how do you fix this? What is the solution to this? And I think, to my mind, Agile provides a really obvious solution, that actually, rather than saying we want someone who can do all of these things, we want a technical Scrum Master, and kind of miss just what a vast skill set that would be if done properly in each area. What you should actually do is kind of create user stories for this and say, these are the needs we need to meet with the Scrum Master. and then prioritize them like you'd prioritize a backlog and say, you know, in this particular instance, the most important thing our Scrum Master needs to be able to do is be really technical and be a very directive coach and come in and just help tell people how to fix problems. Or the most important thing we need to do is actually build our softer skills, build our servant leadership, build our collaboration, build the facilitation. And it kind of doesn't matter that the Scrum Master isn't very technical. In fact, thinking about it, one of the best Scrum Masters I ever worked with had a degree in archaeology and couldn't write a line of code. She was absolutely fantastic Scrum Master to work with, has now gone off and become a huge success in that sort of area for projects I know you will have heard of. I won't say who she is or what company she was working for, but I know full well you will have seen the stuff she has delivered. Phenomenal, and not a clue when it came to writing code necessarily. So yes, work out what you're looking for, put them in stories, and then prioritize it. And then put that prioritized description out there to people and go, we're looking for a Scrum Master who is most around this areas, and if they have this stuff at the bottom, fine, but it's kind of backlog items, we're not too worried if we don't get to. And then let people come to you with their solution for it. The more you go out there and say, right, we want a technical Scrum Master, we want someone who could do all of these different things to a brilliant degree, it's not going to happen, or very, very rarely going to happen. You're looking for a mythological 20-legged horse, which I just don't think is going to work.